All right, all right. Let's get it going in here. Let's get our Facebook friends in here before it's officially time to go. Got a spinning wheel going. 1 and 2. There we go. Welcome in, everybody. It's Tuesday evening, 4/18/2023, and we are, 8 days until the NFL draft. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always, for Building the Broncos, Carl Dumler. Carl, how you doing? How is the bipolar weather?
It's good right now.
Oh,
Kids and
good for
I
you.
spent the afternoon actually cleaning cars and hanging out outside, and so it's kind of nice getting a little sun on this skin that's been getting a little paler by the day.
Yeah.
Finally ready for that spring/summer. So yeah, no, it's going good. Soccer season's kicked off for me, coaching wise, and I'm happy that I have a voice today. Like last night after the games, completely gone, and I was going, "Oh no, please be back by tomorrow." So yeah, I'm good to go for today.
Well, good. The beard's looking good. Everything looks like we're going well. The internet looks like it's cleared up some. So just let me know. But let's say hello to some people in the chat. It is Tuesday evening. We're going to try to run another mock draft here because Carl was so sad last week that we better have to double up again, get another one in here. And we're going to talk about Dane Brugler's mock draft as well. So Dane Brugler just released the Beast about 10 days ago. He graded his document is, let me see, how many pages is it? I think it's like 340 pages of prospects. And he also had a 7-round mock draft. And I don't know which is actually more work. I mean, obviously the Beast is more work, but a 7-round mock, my God, that's a bleep ton. And God bless him for it, because we can talk about it without having to put in the work. But let's say hello to some people in here. Dylan Von Ark, sup Broncos country. Make sure you guys hit that like button on the way in. Share on all your platforms and subscribe if you haven't already. Got our guy Kevin Gray saying evening Broncos country. Nick, Carl, and Scott, how's everyone doing? Mile high salute to you, Kevin. Appreciate you. Got our guy David McElrath, Papa Bear, as I know him, saying good evening Broncos country. Nick, Carl, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Buckham ×2. Buckham twice. MHH for life. Denver Broncos for life. We love that. Mike S coming in. What's up, Nick, Carl, Scott, Dylan, and Broncos country. We got David Yunkin coming in here. Yunkin coming in. David, you have to let us know how the pronunciation is on that one. You comment enough that I want to get it right. You might have to tell me a few times still, but let's get it right. Stepping in for a second to say what's up, Broncos country. What's up with you? Hope you're doing well. Got our guy Dominique Martin saying MHH for life. Shout out to all the MHH ladies. Also salute to all my MHH brothers. Double shout out to the ladies. We always appreciate that. Carol Allen coming in. Hello, Broncos country family. Good to see you. Paul, friend Paul. Hope you're doing well. Paul, he says the OGs. That means we're old. If we are the OGs, that means we're getting old. So a little bit unfortunate on that one, but appreciate the shout out, Paul. Dominic Martin coming in, asking about Pitt running back Israel Anaconda. Where's he projected to be drafted? We had a little bit of a conversation about him before the show. I think Israel has very good vision. I think that's probably his best trait. Good pacing, good vision, but he has no ability to break tackles, no real juice at all to his game. So I think you're talking about maybe a 5th round running back. He was pretty productive there at Pitt. Granted, the ACC has not had pretty good defenses here for the last few seasons, Clemson aside. But Israel, I think he's probably a 5th rounder. Great vision. I think he's going to be, somebody that can come in there and take a few snaps, but he doesn't offer as much in terms of the traits, the explosiveness, the things he can do beyond what's blocked for him. Any thoughts on Israel, Scott? Or Carl? Scott as well. Scott doesn't have any thoughts.
No, I think you nailed it there. I wouldn't mind. I know we're going to talk about the draft that Dane Brugler put out there, and he did take a running back for the Broncos, but I also wouldn't mind their 5th round, 6th round waiting for that position. And if that guy, if Anaconda, Anaconda is there, I would definitely not mind that.
Yeah. One thing I do like about him, though, is he is built decent. 216 pounds is great. So that's one thing you are looking for there with that kind of position, some size as well. So Anaconda, I think there's actually a B in there. Anaconda from Pitt. I think he's probably a 4th or 5th rounder, but we'll see. It's a deep running back class. You're going to hear my opinion coming up here pretty soon on it when we talk about it. But thanks for the question. Good evening from Jesse Hilborn coming in here. Got our guy Dom coming in saying, what's good, Carl, Nick, Scott, and Broncos country? Everything's good. We're enjoying it. It's not raining right now, so I'm not, don't see the, excuse me, don't see the animals lining up 2 by 2. Carl, I just discovered, this is just a shout out, Dots Pretzels. I have never had these before. These things are amazing, and I have one kind of in my throat right now, so forgive me, but Dots Pretzels, my God. So good. Michael Rome coming in saying, besides Green Jackson, are there any free agent safeties that are worth looking at that are still available? Obviously, Kareem Jackson stands out. The Broncos did bring back PJ Locke as well. They have Delarian Turner-Yell. But any thoughts on potential safeties for the Broncos?
I mean, he's still got Adrian Amos out there. He's had some good seasons before. LaMarcus Joyner is another one that I think could be a decent value for the Broncos. Sitting there, I mean, I think I think he's 32, so maybe not the best when we're talking about age. But Kareem Jackson's 35, so I guess either way, you're bringing in kind of an older guy at this point. That's just kind of a couple names that are out there. There's quite a few, but nobody that really makes the team really tick further ahead in my mind right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of names here. I think you're probably reaching close to the point in the draft. Oh, Carl Joseph's available. I think the Broncos, didn't they try to bring him in a couple years ago?
Yeah.
He was the former first-round pick by the Raiders. Another great first-round pick by the Raiders that doesn't make it through the rookie contract. But I think the Broncos right now, you could probably bring in a safety if you really wanted to, but there's going to be a point in the offseason, or I guess the preseason, where you go from 90 to 53. And if the Broncos, if Delarian Turner-Yell, Caden Stearns, a bunch of those guys, and you don't draft one as well, don't step up, there's probably going to be a safety available in that range because these rosters are going to cut in half. So if you're still worried about it, then that's one. But good names shout out there. Armani Watts, I liked him coming out of Arkansas. He's an interesting one. Eric Harris, Broncos. Did they have him for a hot second? Eric Harris, well, when he was he the one that was? No, I'm thinking Anthony Harris. Never mind.
Yeah, there you go.
Rodney McLeod is a name as well to keep an eye on. Obviously, Adrian Amos, John Johnson the third. I think he was pretty highly valued a few draft cycles ago. And heck, maybe there's a chance the Broncos identify a cornerback that they want to switch over. I mean, that's exactly what happened with Kareem Jackson, right? He was a cornerback, moved to safety for the Broncos. Maybe somebody like Marcus Peters is still out there. Maybe he moves to the position. You're looking for a little bit of size, but there's some interesting names that maybe will make that transition. Rocky Sin still out there. Artie Burns, so we'll see. There's definitely some interesting names, and we'll see what happens with the Broncos here. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've seen in the chat here a little bit because this name has come up. Buda Baker has been asking for a trade out of Arizona. Of course, knows Vance Joseph very well. Has played very well for Vance Joseph. What are you willing to trade for a guy like him?
I just don't know. If it's the best resource allocation to not only spend that much draft capital that is bringing in a safety like that, but your salary cap. I mean, you're already paying Justin Simmons huge money. Do you want to also then pay Buda Baker huge money for arguably the least valuable position on a defense? Now, granted, get good players. It's really, we don't want to overthink it too much, but if you're talking about bringing him in, giving up a third round pick plus, and then renegotiating his contract and paying him even more money, I don't know. I don't know if that's the best pathway for the Broncos here going forward. Now, if they do trade for him, you'd have to be pretty excited about that safety duo, but maybe after the draft, we can talk about it.
Yeah. All right. We got Greg Smith saying, good evening, Broncos country, Denver Broncos for life. Good to see you, Greg. And Cooper coming in saying hi. Well, hi back to you, Cooper. Good to see you. And Michaela as well. Glad you're both joining us here this evening. And there's Michaela. Hey, everyone.
Hey to you. Phil coming in with stars. Phil, you're a star as well. Let's turn up that starlight on me. Once I leave the camera for a second, it goes black. Good evening, Carl and Nick and Deacon Scott. Let's mock and have some fun. Buckham Broncos for life. Thank you so much, Phil, for the support. We really do appreciate you coming in. Hope you're doing well. We also had our guy, Greg Smith, coming in here. Good evening, Broncos country. Good to see you, Greg. Always appreciate Greg. We got Michael Branquillo coming in here saying, good evening, Nick and Carl. I'm building the Broncos. Go Broncos and Buckham. I saw Michael rocking some of the gear the other day, so shout out to you, Michael, for supporting us in so many ways. We do appreciate you. I hope you're doing well. We got our guy, Tall Dark in Mexican, saying, the Broncos should do with safety position? Unretire Atwater. I don't wish that for Atwater. It would be fun. Maybe you could do that in Madden, but I think he's pretty happy right now. I don't think he wants to mess with anything that they might take away his gold jacket.
He still looks like he can play, though.
Oh, he's built, man. He's a monster. Ryan Powell, there are more flavors of dots, Nick. You need to try them with French onion dip. I'll get into it, man. I just discovered them, the seasoning. So good. Ryan Powell, good evening, Nick, Carl, and Scott. Richard Miles in the house, too. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. -411 saying Baker would be worth a third, but maybe that's not enough. I'm guessing it's probably going to take the value of a mid-second to go get him. And then you have to pay him a big contract on top of that. It would be awesome to have him. Broncos have one of the oldest rosters in the NFL. You need your draft picks. You're already limited on draft picks. You spent so much money already. I don't know. I am cautious about that. I feel like you kind of already, God, I don't want to use this term. You kind of already spent your big budget this offseason in doing something like that. Now, let's put it this way. If you're trading for Budda Baker, would you rather bring in Budda Baker at the cost of moving Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton off the roster? Because that's probably what it's going to have to happen here as far as a contract and draft compensation. I don't know if I'd rather do that.
Yeah. When you got Jesse Hilburn coming in saying trade a third in Sutton for him and D-Hop. If we had salary cap turned off, then you could do that. But that's, like I said, that's a lot of money going for some veteran players. And D-Hop, I'm not sure how many more great years he has left in him. He's kind of been injured and up and down on a lot of things lately. I think he's a great player still, don't get me wrong, and better than Sutton. But I love these players. I do. And I think they would be a good helper for the Broncos. Like I said, at what expense? If you're, that third, like I said, you're getting older as a team, you're adding more to the salary cap, you're hurting your ability to build this team. It's going to be pretty much, we're going to go all in this year, that we're winning the Super Bowl year one with Sean Payton. I don't think the Broncos are quite going down that path.
We'll see. Mile High Huddle says salary cap turned off and the Arizona Cardinals brains turned off. Yeah. I mean, are their brains turned off? Or are they trying to tank with the Rams to get that number 1, number 2 overall pick? That's a team that's probably the next one to be sold with everything going on there. Albert Knopper's in the house. Come on, Albert. Good to see you. Hello, everyone. Good to see you, Albert. We appreciate you coming in. Got our guy Chase Wellner also. BTB with the fist punch. Good always to see you. Michael Kerr, it's been a second, says choose kindness when talking about Jerry. Yeah, I mean, we'll hope for the best for him. We'll see. He keeps getting thrown out in potential trade possibilities, and I hope he stays and has a great year for Denver. Heath Holmes coming in saying, hi, Nick and Carl. Draft must be getting pretty close. It is, and shout out to Heath, a Hawkeye fan, so we appreciate that. And that's obviously who our guy coming in here says, go Hawks. He's talking Hawkeyes. He's obviously not a Seahawks fan trolling us. I'm just going to choose to believe the goodness there. Gina Cooper coming in here. Once again, shout out to our Mile High Huddle ladies with the stars. Thank you so much, Gina. Hope you're doing well. And thank you so much for the support. I hope you're doing well. Michaela coming in here saying, good point. We need to see what Delaren Turner-Yell can do. He's still on the roster. I can't believe the Broncos took him 1 pick before Tyreek Woolen. That one's kind of a little bit upsetting there. A lot of those kind of moves in the draft, unfortunately, for the Broncos over the last decade. But I digress. Carl, let's get into it here. So Dane Brugler, shout out to the guy at The Athletic. I think as soon as he published The Beast, talking with him, it said that he had like a really bad case of strep throat. As soon as that came down, I mean, he was like getting 2 hours of sleep for about 2 hours a week here. So thank him for coming out with the 7th round mock. Gina also thanks coming in here saying, glad to be here again this evening and catching in on another MHH show. Well, we're glad to have you here too, Gina. We appreciate you. Really, seriously, thank you so much. But Dane Brugler, 7th-round mock here. And let's get right into it, Carl. For the Broncos, their first pick, they have them going at pick 67 overall, running back / offensive weapon, I guess as we'll call it here. Devon Achane, Texas A&M. And then also at pick 68, going edge rusher here, Zach Harrison. So we'll break it down pick by pick here, but Dane did a little write-up here for the Broncos pick of Devon Achane, running back from Texas. He says, be it was Reggie Bush, Darren Sproles, or Alvin Kamara, the Saints always seem to have a big play igniter as part of their backfield rotation. Achane could be that for Sean Payton in Denver, where he'd complement Samaje Perine and Javonte Williams, who's coming off a major injury. So Devon Achane there at 67 overall, and then followed by a guy that I've liked and kind of been mocking the Broncos a bit here for a bit now, Zach Harrison. So what do you think there, Carl? First, let's go to Devon Achane at pick 67 overall. Broncos add arguably one of the fastest players in the draft.
So I really like Achane. The more I watch him, actually, the more I like him. He isn't just a speed guy. I mean, the way that they use him there at Texas A&M, they actually had him being like their feature back, running up the middle, picking up the tough yards. And now it's not his best game by any means. Mm-hmm. He's not a guy that's going to move the pile and kind of drive for an extra couple yards. But even there's times where he was able to find a little crease. And if he finds anything, he's going to make teams look silly trying to take angles to tackle him. And that's the great thing that he'd be bringing to the Broncos is just an ability to hit that home run play. If you're 95 yards away from the end zone, he could take it 95 yards in a blink of an eye if you give him just that little bit of a crease. He's also got pretty darn good hands. They actually would split him out wide in a slot wide receiver position at times. And I watched him make one catch on the sideline, just went up, guy swept out his legs from underneath him, somehow still came down with it. Just one of my favorite catches of the year. And so he's right. When he's talking about what Sean Payton likes in a running back, A-Chain brings a lot of that. Now, my biggest worry with this, one, he is very small, very, very small. About, I think Michael Kerr said 5'8", 188 pounds. So you can't have him as your feature back. The only way that I'm really thinking going this kind of direction this early in the draft is if I really do feel comfortable with Javonte Williams coming back earlier than later. Because I need to have some trust that at least halfway through the season, I'm going to have another running back available just in case Piron goes down with injury. Because if Piron goes down with injury, all of a sudden you're going, oh, crap. What are we doing? You're in a little bit of trouble at that point. Now, I know you can find running backs that can come in and do some work. I mean, Broncos did that last year later in the season with some injuries that happened. But still, you don't want A-Chain to have to be that feature back for you. It's going to not end well for you. You need to put him in that specialty role that he can really be that explosive player for you.
Yeah, he is. I'm pretty concerned about the size overall, I will say. 188, I think typically 190 is about the cutoff. There are not many backs in the last 15 years that have weighed less than 190 that have done much in the NFL. I think one of the names I've heard compared to him is Jahad Best, running back, former first-round pick from Cal. And he suffered a concussion very early in his career that kind of took him out. So we didn't really get to see what happened with him. But I don't think he has the ability to put on too much more mass. And because of that, it's always going to be an issue for him running between the tackles in terms of breaking tackles. And I think he does have good vision and patience. I agree with you there, which is half the battle. But, the guys are bigger, longer in the NFL, and you're going to have to be able to break an arm tackle every once in a while. And I think he runs tough, but I just don't know how much more mass he can add to improve that yards after contact. The other thing, and this is such a boring, kind of coach speak kind of thing here for me, but his size is going to be a major detriment to him as a pass protector. It's kind of like when you had Phillip Lindsay out there, no disrespect to Phillip Lindsay, great player, but when he was out there, he was almost a non-factor in pass protection. You'd have been better off sending him out into space as a receiver. Now, Lindsay was not great as a receiver. A-Chain is much better there. So there's some value there, but from the size, I don't know if I could stomach taking him at 67, 68. If they got him in, it'd be a fun playmaker without a doubt. That could add a unique player that this team does not have to the offense, an auxiliary weapon, without a doubt in my mind. But 67, 68, I'm guessing there's going to be players I like more in that range. If the Broncos trade down to like middle of the third round, 10, 15 picks, and A-Chain is still available, I think we can be talking there. 67, 68, though, I don't know, especially for a team that wants to is getting big and physical. Maybe that's only so much of the trenches, so you have more room for a guy like this to create explosive plays. We'll see what the philosophy is, but I get it. I just wish he was a little bit different player. And if I don't think I'm taking any running back in this draft, unless for some reason Jahmyr Gibbs falls to the round 3 there with the Broncos picks at 67, 68.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, like I said, love the player, love what he could bring to the team. I think he would, like I said, he'd just be that weapon X that you could just put all over the offense and make teams have to respect what he does on the field. But I still think there's going to be kind of more of a niche role. It's not going to be a guy that's going to be a 3-down player for you on a regular basis. And with that first pick where you're needing somebody to come in and play on a regular basis, probably pretty early on, I think you're kind of missing a little bit there.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that 100%. So it would be interesting. I mean, it does seem like the Broncos are looking to add some talent to the running back room still, but he's just so small, man. Michael Kerr coming in and saying, give me Roschon Johnson later instead. There's been some talk Roschon Johnson could go late third, given his special teams value, but we'll see what happens with him. If he's there in the 4th, I would be very excited to see what he can do. We got our guy Lawrence Rivera saying, what up, Bronco family? Good to see you. Chase Wellner said, got to be better running back options at that pick. I think after Gibbs and Robinson, I would rather wait until like round 4, round 5, where there's a plethora of options. The next guy on my list would probably be Charbonnet at UCLA. I would take him probably over A-Chain. Just more 3-down ability, more between the tackle ability. He actually has the size, but I don't know. I think 67, 68, there's going to be cornerback, edge, defensive tackle, offensive line, tight end, even linebacker. That is going to be a little bit more valuable for the Broncos there. But we got a guy coming in here. Where was the question? Somebody's mentioned about a safety from Iowa. Well, somebody asked about the safety from Iowa, and they said Chad was mentioning a safety from Iowa last night. And here we go. Ryan Powell. Thank you so much. Saying Chad was talking about safety from Iowa last night. Nick, what can you tell us about him? Iowa does have a safety in this draft named Kayvon Merriweather. Now, he is probably not the guy that you're talking about here, but I do want to give a shout out to Kayvon Merriweather because he's a good special teams player, and the Broncos could probably take him 6th round. Tested okay, former basketball player, and good dude. You're probably talking about Riley Moss. I think Riley Moss is probably going to get a chance to play boundary cornerback first. He's a good enough athlete. He did not play a lot of man coverage, and he's pretty conservative in his coverages, not to get beat over top, but you see the athleticism, you see the tightly packaged frame, and you see the ball skills. He had 11 interceptions over his career at Iowa, and I think 3 pick sixes. So Riley Moss, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he goes in the top 100. I think pick 67, 68 is a little bit rich for him, but anywhere from like 95 to 110, probably coming off the board about there. But if he falls around 4, definitely somebody that you can consider there and be kind of he'd be an outlier. We haven't had a Caucasian cornerback start in the NFL for a long time, and he's pretty darn talented. So it'll be fun to watch to see what he does this year. We got Lawrence Rivera coming in $5. We already got Lawrence, but let's say hello again, saying what's up, Broncos country. Good to see you, Lawrence. Got our guy Todd Ostendorf saying what's up, Nick, Carl, Dylan, Scott, and Broncos country. We're just chilling. We're having fun. We're talking about Dane Brugler's mock. And let's get into this next comment here the next pick here is Zach Harrison. Zach Harrison from the University of Ohio State, former super recruit, was supposed to be that next big recruit after the likes of Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Chase Young, and then Zach Harrison came in. Again, massive length. I'm trying to find the I have the defensive tackles up, but he came in with like 34-inch arm length.
36.
36. That is unbelievable. That's crazy arm length. 36-inch arm length, big frame, coming in at about 270. Carl, give me the specs because you obviously have it pulled up in front of you.
I actually don't have it pulled up. I just remember I looked at him earlier. Sorry. Okay. And the 36-inch it stands out.
Jumps out.
Right. Yeah. I think he's about 270 somewhere in there. 6'5", 6'4",
6'5", 6'6", probably.
Okay. Yeah. Somewhere in there. So very long guy, about as long as you can get when you're talking about an edge player coming into the NFL. And that's going to be a huge helper for him, especially holding up on the edge, keeping offensive tackles off of him, being able to keep them away from his body so that he can shed and get wherever he needs to go. I like this pick. He's one of those guys though. You think he should probably be better statistics wise. Like I said, he was supposed to be that next big superstar. And he was good. He just wasn't that, obviously he's not being a top 5 pick. And there's a lot of times where I watch him where it's kind of, he's just watching to see what's happening in front of him. And then he's trying to make a decision of what he's going to do. Now, when he makes the decision, I'm going to attack, I'm going to be the guy that goes and makes a play. The guy's explosive. He can get there and he can do it. But he's just got to make that decision to commit early on, to have a plan in place before the ball's even snapped. A lot of times it's kind of more he wants to be a reactive player instead of being proactive. And so that's my biggest concern with him coming out is just, what can you do to take him to that next level? Well, I don't think it's a coaching issue because obviously Ohio State has some great coaches there. They brought up some great defensive ends, but I just, like I said, I want more for a guy that is that big, that fast, that strong.
Yeah, I agree with you. The biggest thing is he has a lot of explosiveness to his game, but he's an extremely stiff player. And that, the ability to be flexible, especially around the arc as an edge rusher, is that last, 5-10% that is the difference between pressures and sacks. It's kind of the Jadeveon Clowney syndrome, right? Where he's like, oh, this big height, weight, speed guy, a little stiff, couldn't finish a lot of it. A lot of pressures, but not a lot of sacks. Benjamin Flores talking about a lot of sacks, whatever the hell that means. I'm sorry, Ben, I had to say it. Appreciate you coming in and saying hello. I really like Zach Harrison for this Broncos team, and I think he'd be a really interesting rotational player for this unit. Now, outside of Zach Allen, which we're not sure yet what his role is going to be on this team, he's going to be a 4-eye. Is he going to be a heavy edge? I mean, do a little bit of both. Broncos are very small and light at edge right now. And Zach Harrison brings a guy who can line up at, 7 technique in your base packages and give you a lot of edge setting ability and length, mass. I mean, just all that stuff. And then maybe kick inside and do some different stuff with sub packages. I don't think he got the bet. This is crazy to say, but over the last 3 to 4 years, the defensive side of the ball coaching at Ohio State has not been great. I think that's why they fired the guy 2 years ago. They brought in the Oklahoma State defensive coordinator and a bunch of new defensive positional coaches over the last couple of years because the defense has fallen off a tad. And I don't know if Harrison has reached his ceiling yet. He's a really explosive player. Had, I think, 22 pressures, or was it 22 pressures? Led the team in 2022 with pressures out there at Ohio State, and has also been a team captain. So I don't think he's ever going to be a guy who matches his recruiting pedigree. Really highly rated recruit, 5-star, but the height, weight, speed, the length, the power, I mean, all that stuff plays. He's somebody that you'd love to have as a rotation. I don't know if he's ever going to be a great starter in the league as an edge rusher, but again, if you can have him be, your 2B or your 3A, where you're kind of playing him, especially playing him off Nick Benito, then that would be a really fun player for the Broncos to add, and a position that, or a kind of player they simply don't have right now. So let's keep it going here, but let's actually say hello to some people in the chat. Zach, he's a pretty interesting one. We got Brandon P. St. Allen is pretty good, talking about Zach Allen. We hope so. Had some injuries there to Arizona. Let's hope he can stay healthy. Todd coming in saying, when does HN go and might he fall to the 3rd round? I think he is going to fall to 3rd. We talked about him just a second ago, so he must come in a little bit late because he was mocked to the Broncos. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes where the Broncos are picking. I personally would rather wait until mid to late 3rd on him, given his size is such an outlier. But would be a really interesting player for the Broncos, no doubt. We got Zach Power saying mock draft scenario to the picks Broncos gave Seattle. Seattle taking, I think Tyree Wilson is a really probable player there for them, just given the body type they like there. After that, I mean, you could see Steve Avila. You could see another cornerback go there to them. So those picks are gonna be a little bit of a bummer when they come across the board, no doubt, because those are some talented players the Broncos could have grabbed. Speaking of talented players, Broncos now 4th round pick coming in here. Another Big Ten guy, Sidney Brown, safety from Illinois. So Sidney Brown, one of the standouts at the Senior Bowl this year. Twin brother? Is he twin brothers with Illinois running back Chase Brown? Or are they just brothers? I don't know if they're actually twins, but did a lot of good things there. Twins. Yeah, twin brothers. Timeout. Twins. T for twins. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, twins. So twins. But twin player did a lot of stuff at Illinois, tested extremely well out there at the combine, and was a member of just an unbelievably talented Illinois defense they had this last year in Champaign. I mean, honestly, I think they beat Iowa 10-9 or something like that. It was just an unbelievable defensive showing. So yeah, Illinois, a lot of good, talented second-year players. Everybody knows Witherspoon. But what do you think about Sidney Brown here? The Broncos getting a starting safety, a position that they might need some help on. We've had some safety questions in here today. Sidney Brown going to the Broncos at pick 108.
So there's a few things about him that make a lot of sense for the Broncos. One, his ability to come down the box. Illinois loved to have him move down in there, use his athleticism, go make plays in the backfield. A lot of times even come up in that kind of slot safety position, kind of press a tight end. He's got the strength to kind of hold up in that spot where he can actually get under their pads and kind of disrupt the route. And that's what the Broncos kind of need. Simmons can cover the back end. They need somebody that can get up there, can get in some people's faces. And like I said, athletic freak. Guy tested off the charts, but he's 5'10", which is pretty tiny for a safety. Especially if he's going to be going against some of these tight ends that are 6'5", and he's given up that kind of inchage, and plus, wingspan wise, he's a lot shorter, all those kind of things. But like I said, he has no problem getting down there, making a play, loves to tackle. Well, okay, loves to try to tackle. I should say that. Guy misses a lot of tackles. So that's something he's got to really clean up. He wants the big hit. And I think you see that sometimes where he's really lowering his head, wanting to go in there, just level somebody, and he's just not quite breaking down like he should. That's where coaching come in, clean a lot of that up for this guy. You know, I do worry a little bit. He kind of was very, very average for the first couple years in college football. All of a sudden really kind of emerged this year. Is that something that's kind of just springing forward, or is it because he's a lot older now? Because he's actually, I think he's played 5 years in college.
I believe so.
I think he's like 23.
Going to be 23. Yeah.
And so I worry a little bit about that. But like I said, athletic freak, had a ton of turnovers this last year. I think 6 interceptions.
Led the Big Ten.
Yeah. And just he seems to be around the ball, finds his way to go get it. And he's got huge hands. I don't know if you noticed that in his mock graph or whatever, which is one of the big reasons I think he can go out there and make a lot of plays that way. So like I said, I think he actually is a pretty darn good fit for the Broncos. You just got to worry about the size, got to worry about sometimes, like I said, the missed tackles, and you got to worry about just sometimes he just is a little bit too aggressive. I wish he'd kind of clean up some of that, but he's smart. And I think he can really make that transition to the NFL pretty early on. And if nothing else, he's going to be a standout special teams guy.
Got to fix that tackling if you're going to be a special standout. The athleticism profile, yes, but there's a lot of technical work in the tackling in the open field that you need to have that. But I agree with you. Projects to be a good special teams guy. Could be a really interesting player. Like you said, 6 interceptions this year, led the Big Ten, second team All-American this past season, did play 5 years, started every single game he ever played in. So came in as a true freshman and started. Big concern here for me, reading his Dane Brugler's work here on this one. Last line of his weaknesses. NFL scouts mention a concern with concussions. So something to watch out there for. Concussions are something you don't want to mess with, but tested extremely well. Seems to be a good guy as well. I think a team captain. So will be fun. And I love this quote also from Iowa, go Hawks, tight end who's going to be in this draft as well, Sam Laporta. He said about Brown, saying, Brown was the best player I faced all season. He's tough, he's fast, he's physical. So the ability to play that safety spot, but also come down and do a little bit of slot work as well. Really fun player. I could see him being there in the 4th, just looking at the other available players there after the Broncos picked there. Maybe Trey Palmer makes a little bit more sense for the Broncos looking at wide receiver. Maybe looking at a type of offense tackle like Blake Freeland, although I don't like Blake Freeland very much. Moro Ojomo can get after the quarterback there a little bit. So we'll be interested. Riley Moss came off a little bit later. Wanya Morris, Zach Kuntz. I mean, there's a lot of fun players here. Here's a one here that everybody keeps mocking this guy to the Broncos in the 3rd round. Luke Weipler doesn't come off the board until pick 133, which is the third to last pick in the 4th round in Dane's mock. So maybe Luke Weipler not as highly thought of as a lot of these mock drafts that keep coming out here. But I would be fine with Brown, and he'd be a fun player for the Broncos and somebody that would give some competition to Caden Stearns at a position that needs some competition, quite frankly. I mean, I'm a believer in Caden Stearns, but he hasn't been healthy, and I would not depend on him.
Right. I think it is an underrated need for the Broncos. Like I said, there's just so much unknown other than Justin Simmons right now. And so the more competition you can get, and like I said, safeties, they are big time helpers on special teams. A lot of times they're, should be. A lot of times they're your gunners coming down the field, making plays for you. And so the more you can add to it, hopefully you can add just another playmaker. And like I said, with the turnovers, that can make up for a lot of things on the field. So it'd be kind of fun to see Justin Simmons and him, who gets the most interceptions by the end of the year.
I would have to bet on Justin Simmons.
Yeah, I would too.
Give me odds on that one. But now we have the next pick for the Broncos. But first, let's say hello to the chat here. If anybody has anything coming in, we got comments coming in here from Paul saying Seattle better thank us for building their offensive line. Yeah, maybe a little bit. Todd Ostendorf coming in saying Lucas Van Ness or Ojulari to the Broncos in the 3rd. I think Lucas Van Ness will be gone by pick 18. That's put in the line there. He might be well before that, but the 18. Ojulari, I think, is probably gone by pick 50. So if either of them fell to the Broncos in the 3rd, I'd be wondering if there's something going on there that we are not privy to, or if it's one of those things where, I'm stupid. Sometimes I am stupid. So we'll see. But that doesn't seem to be any conversation about any of those guys falling to the Broncos in that range. Keeping it going here, we have the 5th round for the Broncos, and we have them going Garrett Williams, cornerback from Syracuse. Garrett Williams was considered one of the, I think a lot of people had him as a top 100 pick coming into this year, and he's decent size, 5'10", 192. So a little bit small, but I think he plays okay. thought he was, honestly, when I watched Syracuse last season, he stood out to me. I thought he looked really comfortable in zone. I know he was a team captain as well, but a really good zone cornerback. The big thing with him is that he tore an ACL in his left knee in October 2022, and we've had no testing numbers other than measurements because of that. And it could be something that maybe he misses the entirety of this upcoming season because of that torn ACL, given when it happened. But was a really good cornerback for them. Did a lot of good stuff. It's too bad he tore his ACL, but this is another risk. Take a concussion guy there round 4 and now an ACL guy round 5. I don't know. I mean, if they believe in the guy, he was a team captain, but Garrett Williams, Syracuse. What do you think, Carl?
Yeah, I like him a lot. There's a few things that stick out. He's very smart. He's very calculated. I think, what did I see? He's had 0 penalties in the last 2 years.
You love that. That's really good. It's a good stat.
Now, there is a little bit of a negative to that. And I think there's times where he doesn't take a chance and he'll just kind of hang back, let the guy kind of catch it. He's kind of watching the player, not really going after the ball. And so I think there's times I wish he'd be a little bit more aggressive. There's a lot of jump balls that somehow he allowed to be caught on a regular basis. Just it seemed like more than other guys. Mm-hmm. And like I said, he is a little bit shorter, so maybe that plays into it a little bit. And I do worry about the long speed. We didn't get the testing numbers. If he did get beat, a lot of times it seemed like it was either the kind of the comeback route where the guy would have a chance kind of face up and kind of box him out, or the long ball. And just seemed like he'd lose a step. If he lost a step, he lost the match, kind of thing. And so those are my 2 big concerns with him. But beyond that, like I said, he's smart. He's calculated. He doesn't have any problem helping in the run game. He'll get in there. He'll do the dirty work when you need him to. And so I think for the Broncos, it's worth a chance at this point. Take a chance on a guy, like you said, that could have been a top 100 pick if he was healthy.
Yeah, and any thoughts in the chat about any of these picks for the Broncos? I think it'd be an okay one there. You probably wouldn't see him this season, so I don't know how much he helps with your depth long term. But if he ends up being a starter as a 5th round pick at the cornerback, you can do a lot worse. So that's one to look out for him. You know that George Payton loves to draft his defensive backs. We got our guy. Go ahead.
Sorry, I wanted to point out one more thing. He has a really neat statistic. He is the only guy to have a pick 6 off of Trevor Lawrence in college football.
Well, man, I hope he kept that football. Maybe the next level he can do it again. But moving on now, we got our next player here. Somebody that I've heard mentioned before, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have not watched him at all, and that is wide receiver David Durden from West Florida. I have not watched much West Florida tape. See that he's going to turn 25 years old next season, so a little bit older, but an interesting player. 6'1", 200 pounds, and tested okay, 4.45 40, 1.55 10-yard split. Nothing exceptional, but had a really productive career at West Florida, specifically this last season. 54 receptions, 1,128 yards, 20.9 yards per reception, and 13 touchdowns. 2021, he had 10 touchdowns. So really productive player out there. Will be interesting to see how he does. Guys, I know you come here for our draft takes. I have not watched any West Florida, so all I can do is read what other people have said about him. But hopefully somebody the Broncos can take that can add some special teams ability and potential developmental player at wide receiver.
All right. So I dug in the weeds today to go find West Florida tape and watch this guy.
God bless you.
So the guy is very, very strong. I mean, he's not going to get bullied on the field by any means. I think he plays bigger than his size. Now, some of that could be the competition he's going against. He just looks actually bigger on the field than a lot of those other guys. He's a pretty good athlete. You see him run away from people, does well in the open field once the ball gets in his hands. He's got very strong hands. I was very impressed by some of his catches that he somehow would come down with it. He didn't have the most accurate quarterback throwing to him by any means. So he's making a lot of catches, turning back, trying to make a catch, or going up high, coming down with it. Some things that he's really got to work on like crazy. He has no technique. I mean, he just looks like a guy that they picked off the street and said, "Hey, would you like to come play a pickup football game?" And then put him in the wide receiver spot. And I mean, just his footwork is atrocious.
Yeah.
If you can get some of that stuff cleaned up, I think he can turn into a decent role player for you. Like I said, he can maybe help on some special teams. I don't see him ever becoming like this great starter in the NFL by any means, but I think that he does have a lot of decent qualities it's going to take you a couple years before you really begin to know what you've got in this guy, because there's just so much you've got to clean up in his game.
I do see here that he had 24.6 yards per kick return in his career, 43 for 1,558 yards and a touchdown, as well as punt return duties in 2022. So somebody who can do that as well, and could be an interesting player, no doubt. I can't remember who it was. Listening to somebody talk, said a deep sleeper. It might have been Ben Fennell, who did a lot of work for NFL Network, I think, for a while. But he mentioned Durden as an interesting player who scouts had raved about his pro day, or one of the most unknown players with the most exceptional pro days. So keep an eye out for Durden. Would be an interesting player for the Broncos there, without a doubt. You know who's interesting is our guy Patrick coming in. Aloha, gents. Patrick, hope you're doing well out there in Hawaii, on Honolulu there. Shout out to Patrick with the Lion coffee. Incredible stuff. God, so good. I'm already ready thinking about coffee tomorrow morning. Guess what I got to do tomorrow morning, Carl?
What's that?
So Scott, I'm live at 6 a.m. with Scott tomorrow, which is early. No, I'm driving two of my friends to the airport, picking them up at 4 a.m. And then coming back and doing that. So I'm going to be either exhausted or wired beyond belief on caffeine for the show tomorrow. So tune in, hang out with Scott and I think we're going to do a complete first round mock draft. But any thoughts on this final mock? So we have the totality of the Broncos here. Their selection. Let's scroll down. Obviously, no 7th round pick in this draft. Broncos going 67 overall. Devon Achane, running back from Texas A&M. 68 overall, Zach Harrison, edge from Ohio State. 108 overall, Sidney Brown, safety from Illinois. 139, Garrett Williams, cornerback from Syracuse. And then 195, David Durden, wide receiver, West Florida. Thoughts off the cuff on that one?
I think this is a very high risk draft for the Broncos. Now, it's a high reward, because you could be getting yourself some great players. Like I said, Sidney Brown, he's a little bit undersized, but if that guy plays like he did this last year for Illinois, could be that next actually pretty darn good safety right across there from Justin Simmons, really add to that secondary. A-Chain, again, if Williams can get healthy and you got P-Ryan, he is a perfect complement to what they bring to the field. I would love to have that kind of 1-2-3 punch for the Broncos moving forward. Like I said, Zach Harrison, love it for the edge position. He brings something that the Broncos are very much lacking right now and need that type of player on the edge. So no problem with that kind of pick. And I do think, like you said earlier, I don't think he's reached his ceiling. I think there is more that he could gain once he gets to the NFL and gets an opportunity. He's still only 21, so plenty of opportunity. And yes, it is great coffee for anybody out there that's looking for coffee. Lion Coffee, go look it up. Very much endorse that coffee. It's still, I got a little bit still left, and I'm there you go. There's the cup. There we go. But yeah, no, I think this is, and then Garrett Williams, like I said, I do like the player. I think he would be a pretty darn good depth player for the Broncos. The injury puts this upcoming season a little bit up in the air for him. I'm guessing he'd probably be ready, just because ACLs, they're not quite the long recovery like we've seen in the past. In the last about 5 years, it's really gone down quite a bit. So I think he could be okay. But still, I'd rather have him ready for the offseason so he can get into the program, make sure that he's ready for the season, because Broncos need a number 3 cornerback, or at least another a backup outside cornerback right now. And if he's missing the entire offseason, that's going to be a problem for me.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to follow. I think my biggest thing walking away from this draft is it would have been nice if they grabbed another offensive lineman in there, somebody that can provide some depth either at tackle or give some competition at center. And the fact that they walked away with a running back and a wide receiver and a safety. I mean, just could one of those picks be an offensive line? Now, granted, you have to go with what the board's available to you there. And looking at the mock, I don't really see an offensive lineman that like jumps out to me, like screaming, you have to take this guy at 67 or 68. But that's my biggest disappointment for this mock draft. The offensive lineman taken after 67, 68. You got Nick Saldiveri, guard / tackle / center, Old Dominion, going 75 to the Falcons. Definitely an option there. Maybe somebody you can look out for. You have Chandler Zavala going 81 to the Lions. He could be an option as well. You got Tyler Steen from Alabama going 92 to the Bengals. You got Jalen Duncan going 95 to the Chiefs. Scott would hate that one. Carter Warren, 97, offensive tackle from Pitt to the Commanders there. So I probably would have liked a offensive lineman there. None of those really jump out to me as must-haves at 67, 68. I think that's just the nature of this class, unfortunately. The one that's interesting here is you're sitting there at 67, and John Michael Schmitz falls to pick 57. Maybe it would depend on what it costs to move up.
Yeah.
But that's one that you at least have to consider it.
I'm with you. I would definitely make that trade if I could figure out a way to, depending on the cost, of course. But to get that kind of player that you could plug and play day one right there at that center position, have your starting five together here for the next few years and feel really good about those five guys. Mm-hmm. I think I can't remember who I was listening to. Big Duke, Merriweather. Manyweather, yeah. He was talking about the center position, and he said it's most important, especially on road games, because that's the guy that just really gets everybody going. And I think you see it with John Michael Schmitz when he's in the game of he's getting everybody in the right spot at the right time. And the Broncos just have not had that for a long time. You look at, of course, Russell Wilson, a lot of his sacks he brings on himself, but at the same time, you see a lot of miscommunications on that offensive line and just things that could have been cleaned up if get the right call, could have had a big play. It's those little details that make a big difference in the NFL.
Yeah, he is. The centers are definitely a concerning spot for the Broncos. We'll see what happens there. There's still some guys out there, so maybe it's one they circle back around on. But with our last, 5 minutes here, let's do a mock draft because Carl didn't have enough this year. So Carl, we're going to do it again. I'm not going to push back as much this time, but I know ESPN has one now as well. We might have to mess with that ESPN one before time's up. Scott says no, not today. Doesn't have to be today, but maybe before the draft is here. Maybe that's maybe not. But we're looking at the PFF one here. Scott's going to pull it up. Interesting mock draft there from Dane. I've been talking to Dane as well. I sent him 6 questions. We'll see if he jumps on us and sends those back to me at some point here. He's been pretty busy with that. And Scott says, yeah, just looking at the ESPN one, it's beta. Okay, well, maybe it'll be good next year then. But the PFF one, I think, is the overall best one you can get right now. That's available. I did like the Draft Network one before, but I don't think it's been as great this year. A lot of turnover there as well. Still like a lot of those writers, but we have the Broncos picking 67 overall, and we have more for needs, a little bit more randomness there. And let's get it. Broncos, we have to wait a little bit, but thank God we can sim through the first 66 picks before the Broncos are officially on the board here with the 67th and 68th overall pick. So here we are, right off the bat here. It's the same players every time at the top. It's really kind of annoying. It's probably driven more by the ADP than the rank. But if Keanu Benton going top of the second round there, not top, but going the second. Unfortunately, I think I saw Luke Musgrave to the Chiefs. Oh, that one's a kick in the what. Mingo going 66 overall. Can you scroll up a little bit more there, Scott? I just was curious about a few more of those names. Cedric Tillman's there. John Michael Schmitz is there. That's unfortunate. Drew Sanders, Keon White, Matthew Bergeron. I mean, God, I really wish we had a second round pick in this class. There's a lot of fun talent available. But Hendon Hooker to 44. Hey, that'd be a fun battle there for you, Scott. Avila there, name to keep an eye on for the Broncos. Darnell Washington, Felix, Broncos brought him in for a visit. There goes Jack Campbell.
It's getting higher and higher.
Yeah, he's a good player, man.
Yeah.
So we're on the clock here with the Broncos, 67 and 68 overall. We talked about Garrett Williams a little bit earlier, following the Broncos in the 5th round. He has him one of the top players here. So really kind of just emphasizes how different these boards can be and how different these people are hearing the mock draft. So that's what makes the draft so fun. You got to put it on the line, make your shot. So Carl, you're on the board here. What are you thinking?
All right. Well, yeah, we got A-Chain right there. We could just copy the mock draft we just got done with. Luke Weipler there at center. I just don't think he's a great fit for the Broncos. That's my biggest concern. I think he's a good player. I just think he's better in a zone scheme. The Broncos are going for the power setup. So if you could scroll down a little bit there for me, Scott, we'll keep going. See, we keep going there a little bit. All right.
Derek Hall, Tucker Kraft, Rasheed Rice.
And there's Sidney Brown. Like I said, we could just do the exact same mock draft. All right, go up just a little bit there. I think I saw the guy that I'd be willing to take here. I feel like, did we take Derek Hall last time?
I think we did, but I can't remember for sure.
All right. Well, I think I'll go I'll go Carl Brooks this time.
Okay.
I know you're
Tell me
not
why.
well, one, because I just love versatile guys. I love that they can be inside, outside, kind of move them around. And I mean, he's a firecracker on the field. Like the guy just wants to explode and go make plays in the backfield. And the Broncos just need a guy like that just plays with his hair on fire. I think they're kind of missing a couple of those kind of guys. And so I think he slimmed down a little bit here heading into this draft process, which I think is good for him. I think that's the direction I would go. And here we go from the Senior Bowl. Like I said, this guy, it's fun to watch. Look at those hands, man. They're just active. He's always just got something moving. Feet are moving, hands are moving. And the more I watch him, the more I like him. I feel like there is a little bit of, like I said, concern. Where exactly are you going to play him all the time? But I think you'd find a role for a guy like that.
Yeah, we got a lot of calls for Charbonnet, for Weipler, for A-Chain. I agree with you. I'm not the biggest Weipler guy. I think he's just so small.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to displace guys with the gap scheme, I don't know. He can be fine there, but let's move it along here. So which one are you thinking here? I'm going to add this back to the stream. So you ended up taking Carl Brooks. You're back on the clock here. Do you want to check out the wide receivers?
Yeah, let's do that.
You're more of a wide receiver guy, and the Broncos have been looking. Michael Wilson, interesting player. Rashee Rice. The Broncos just keep bringing in Rashee Rice for visits. Marvin Mims, Tyler Scott.
I love Marvin Mims.
Do it.
And I feel let's do it. I love Marvin Mims. Yeah, I know he's got a lower rank. I have him higher than where they have him for sure. And I think he was hurt this last year, especially by not having the greatest quarterback play. I think if he stuck with Caleb Williams, I think he'd be going in this range pretty easily, if not higher.
And Dane Brugler has Mims going pick 79 overall. So
okay, so it's not too far off from where we have him going here.
I think early to mid third makes a lot of sense for him there. So you ended up going Mims and defensive line. So now we're looking offensive line, running back potentially. We saw a couple there. We really like Roschon Johnson.
I know, and I did that last.
Talked about him.
Yeah, I did that last time, and it's still hard not to go Roschon Johnson again, just because Moro Ojomo is another, but we already took an Tank inside Bigsby, guy. So
Tank Bigsby's a really good player.
Yeah, yep, that's another option there.
And this is why I want to wait until the fourth round. A-Chain, let's see what happens with running back round 4 or round 5. Maybe it's the PFF simulator doing it for me.
Yeah,
that devalues the running backs a lot, but I think that either of those guys would be pretty great there round 4 for the Broncos.
Yeah. All right, let's go Johnson. I'm sorry. I just love the guy. I think he's a second round value if he gets a chance to start anywhere else in college football. No, Roschon Johnson. I know we passed a few running backs here. Yep, that Roschon.
They're going to kill you in the grades here.
I know. Okay. I don't care.
Okay, we're on the board here for the Broncos. I think the Chandler Zavalava, Moro Ojomo, Dorian Williams, Corey Trice, all those names really look like good ones to me that I would be A-okay with.
Yeah. Corey Trice kind of sticks out there. Really want to get something for that cornerback position. Luke, man.
Schoon.
Tyler Scott's still there. If I didn't already take wide receiver, I want to get it a little bit spread out of other positions. So, all right, I think we can go back up.
Carter
Warren, yeah.
Yaya Diaby. We took an edge already. Yaya. Dane Brugler has Yaya rated higher than Zach Harrison. So, interesting to see where that plays out. But Carter Warren was a top 100 pick. We got Elliot D coming in first, though. One of our top picks, Elliot D. $2 saying, thanks for the content, guys. Thanks for hanging out, man. We appreciate it. So, you're on the clock here, Carl. What are you thinking?
All right, let's go Price at the cornerback position, Trice. Corey Trice. I just think the Broncos need to add to that room big time. They got to add somebody to the secondary at least, that whether it's safety or cornerback, but I think that's a good fit there. And then
now we're on the board again. Is this where you take a quarterback? Is this where you look to add maybe more depth to the special teams? You got a lot of edge rushers, safeties, linebacker. You haven't taken a tight end yet. You got Josh Wiley there. Payne Durham is still there as well. A really good inline guy if you're looking for that number 2 kind of Y tight end there. Options without a doubt. Anthony Johnson, cornerback, would be interesting. Incoom was a edge rusher up a little higher from Central Michigan, who has a little bit of a A little bit of buzz as well. And LED coming back in saying much love from Page, Arizona. Well, much love back to Page, Arizona, Elliot. We appreciate that. That's really awesome.
All right. So was it Mafia was the one that tested big time?
No.
No.
He's
Okay.
the one who's big, but he can't move.
Okay. That's right. Okay.
It was John Gaines who tested really well.
That's right. Gaines. Okay.
I don't think he's even 300 pounds, but he
Yeah.
tested like a freak. Jordan McFadden, I think, could be a really good guard. I started a lot of games at Clemson. He's an interesting player. Davis Allen, also a really good tight end. I mean, I think you have to take a tight end here. There's too many good tight ends.
Okay, I'm with you there. I think I can go that direction.
Any of those top three would be great in my book.
Yeah, I think Payne Durham is the guy just because he brings something the Broncos don't fully have right now. I guess they did bring in a blocking tight end. Yeah.
Man hurts.
But even add more to it because, I mean, if the Broncos are going to become that true power running team, like just getting guys that you can throw out there and especially those goal line packages where you can get some guys. Here we go. And I think he adds more as a wide receiver than people realize.
Red zone.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, man. He can go up and get it. Good seam threats. A really good blocker. I love that. He gives it to Cody Mock there to spike. You gotta love that. That's fun.
Yeah, he's definitely a team all the way kind of guy. You know, he's willing to do the dirty work, and then every once in a while gets that nice reward of making the tough catches like that.
Yeah, I like Payne Durham. I think was it Eric and I? We've been talking about I really was thinking about mocking Payne Durham to the Broncos at like round 5. He's like he won't be there. Well, here he is round 6 in this one. So you never know, right? That's one of those things you just not to tease Eric too much there, but
yeah.
Overall, I give you a C. They hate the Carl Brooks pick. They hate the Marvin Mims pick. They hate the Roschon Johnson one. Carl, you're going to have to disagree with them on that one. So that's fine. But then you go 2 Boilermakers there. I didn't even realize that. You went Boiler up back-to-back there.
Man, I leaned heavy into Big 12 and Boilermakers. But no, I compared to last week, the one that we did, actually, I kind of like this one better. I feel like, especially getting like Marvin Mims there, I think he can really develop into a true starting wide receiver for the Broncos moving forward. Can help lower. I think the Broncos have the second highest wide receiver room in cap spending in the NFL for this upcoming season. So need to get that number down for the Broncos. I think Marvin Mims makes that. Roschon Johnson, again, adding to the running back room. A guy like that, I think, would be great. Carl Brooks adding to the rotation, kind of move him wherever. Helps on the defensive line and the edge position. Corey Trice, again, helping there on that cornerback group. Needed to get some depth. Needed somebody that I can feel comfortable with if they need to come in because they're going to get a lot of targets opposite of Surtain. And, of course, Durham, he's just such an all-around tight end for you. Mm-hmm. He has no problem getting there in the blocking game, whatever you need him to do. Can go up there and make the tough catches, like I said, in the red zone. And I think the Broncos would be happy having him there in the 6th round.
I agree with you. I like it overall. I think I liked each pick progressively more as it went along. I didn't really love the options at 67, so what can you do about that?
Yeah.
But let's say hello to some people in here. Mike S. coming in late. Mike, we're just about to get out of here. Says, what's up, everyone doing tonight? We're doing fine. We got Chase coming in saying, thanks, guys. Make my taxes less boring. Well, don't mess up. Otherwise, they'll come for you. We appreciate that. We got our guy Jack saying, man, I don't know. Are you not a Boilermaker fan? I'm not sure what's going on. He wanted Tariq Bracy. Going to be a valuable player day 3. Do you have any thoughts on Tariq Bracy?
I'm not sure if I've actually watched him yet.
Okay. The name is not standing out to me off the top, but I'm going to take your word for it, Jack. We'll have to look into it. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us today. Make sure you're following Carl on Twitter. Carl is at Carl Dumler. I am at Nick Kendell MH8. Carl's at Carl Dumler MHH. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at BTB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. My God, I'm having a hard time here. At MHH pod, at Mile High Huddle. It's because I clicked the wrong one. That's why I did it. Okay, at Mile High Huddle. Also follow us, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. If you follow us on Apple Podcasts, Apple iTunes, make sure you're leaving us a 5-star rating and review. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe, like, and share to our show. Only one more show, Carl, but until we have the draft come. So I'm gonna have to give you the platform next week for your guys. I feel like you have a few based on these mock drafts we've talked about, but maybe dive into a few more that are your guys in this upcoming draft. But any final thoughts? Are your taxes in? Are you watching the Avalanche versus my Seattle Sea Kraken? What's going on?
I might watch a little. I'm not a big time hockey guy. And so we'll see. I might go do a workout here at the gym and might turn on the game while I'm doing that. But we'll kind of see. I'm not 100% on that. But otherwise, yeah, you're right. We're just a little over a week before the draft. Getting excited, man. It doesn't feel real that it's already here. Kind of going fast this offseason. The years before, it's always kind of gotten really slow leading up to this. Now it's like, oh, crap, we're here.
I think it went fast because the Broncos were so active this offseason.
Yeah.
Free agency was crazy. The stuff with Sean Payton, we didn't have to just like lean into that draft pick the entire time. So we'll be fun. We'll see you guys again tomorrow morning with Scott and I. Carl and I will see you again next week. But until then, make sure you continue to choose kindness and compassion. Buck 'em, go Broncos.